Maximize your wealth now.
Yes, in business, finance, family, and lifestyle. Think about it. As a certified financial educator, my whole goal for this program originally was to bring business and finance together with spiritual principles and universal laws. And all of it needs to come from the heart. Got it?
Maximize your wealth now.
Absolutely. Yes.
Welcome back to Maximize Your Wealth Now.
In business, finance, family, and lifestyle. I'm Shirlene Reeves.
And I'm Barbara Wainwright. And we have a couple of great guests for you today. Rich Gaines, and I love his name. Rich Gaines is a tax attorney. Okay, so he's going to share with us how we can save more of that hard-earned money that we make.
And gain it, right?
And make gains too, of course.
And we also have Neal Katz, and he's written this phenomenal book called Outrageous. And I'm going to share more about that with you, but it goes back to the 1800s, and we are going to have a really interesting conversation about how that economy is matching ours today. So you're going to want to stay tuned.
Neal Katz is a serial entrepreneur. He harbors a passion for women's rights, and his lifestyle is centered on self-awareness and love. His award-winning historical novel entitled Outrageous, The Victoria Woodhull Saga, Volume 1, Rise to Riches, is about two sisters who dynamically advanced human rights and women's suffrage in the Victorian America, and delivers a searing expose of manipulation in the financial markets. Volume 2 is scheduled for release later in 2016. It follows the sisters through their daring entrance into politics as Victoria was becoming the very first woman to be nominated for President of the United States. Neal is dedicated to bettering all of humanity and promotes a new financial paradigm, the Conscientious Credit Funding Organization, to create continuous monetary liquidity through credit funding. The CCFO structures will provide sustainable and renewable funding for diverse charitable endeavors such as microfinance, low-income housing, education, vocational training, as well as infrastructure, redevelopment, and green technologies implementation.
Neal, I am so excited to have you on the set today because this book has made so many awards. It just absolutely amazes me. And you know, the thing I want to share about this is I spent 3 days in my Mexico home in San Felipe, and I couldn't put the book down. It right from the first page. And I think, what I really think is that women today, we had no concept of what was going on in the 1870s and how women were treated. And what I love about this book is it brings us forward from that time and shows us the steps that women have had to go through in order to have a say in the world. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do the research for this book so the women of today can learn. What made you decide to do this book?
Well, before I answer, you've had the opportunity to read the book, but Barbara, there's your copy. It's inscribed.
Thank you so much.
And it's inscribed with the motto that was on the newspaper of the first woman-owned newspaper, and that is upward and onward.
Nice.
But thank you. I encountered Victoria and in some literature, and then I read a book about her by Barbara Goldsmith called Other Spirits, which was an examination of a broad swath of topics in the Victorian era. And featured in it, the subtitle is "And the Notorious Victoria Woodhull." And the more I read about her, the more I liked her. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I decided, because of a lot of similarities between our lives and the adversities both she and I had to overcome, and just incredible admiration for the woman, I decided to write the book first person as her. Mm-hmm. And I hope you didn't figure out it. Well, you knew already, but I hope it didn't sound like.
Know.
I hope it didn't sound like a guy wrote the book.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that. I was very intrigued about that.
I have a tight pair of, no.
A great sense of humor, that's good.
But the story is about the first two sisters who were born dirt poor, literally, and they were abused by their father and forced into prostitution. And it's a beautiful story of accomplishment. And truly, both sisters should be iconic figures for all women across the globe, young and old, to absolutely look up to and say, if they could do it, so can I. And that's what I hope for from the book more than anything else, and to tell a story that needs to be told. Most of the public does not know about this woman. It was funny when Hillary was about to secure the nomination, and they said she's the first woman. Well, there's actually been 29 women in 36 elections that have secured the nomination of their party.
Wow.
It wasn't the major in a two-party system, but that's a lot of women to overlook.
It is a lot of women that worked hard to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like a lot of things of Women First, people have paved the way. And in this case, no one paved the way for Victoria. She aggressively decided she wanted to be wealthy, and she worked with Cornelius Vanderbilt, good name to work with. And she was the first woman with her sister to open a brokerage firm, first woman to publish a newspaper. She was the first person invited to Congress to address the Judiciary Committee, and she was the first woman to run for president in 1872.
Wow.
And just for fun, you asked about how it ties into today. I have to tell you her platform that she campaigned on: women's suffrage, women getting the vote, which was really about equality, regulation of monopolies, nationalization of railroads, an 8-hour workday with an affordable living wage, direct taxation, abolition of the death penalty, welfare for the poor, and equal pay for equal work.
No, was all the things that she was standing for.
In 1872.
Wow.
Astonishing.
It
Just
is.
astonishing. Astonishing how similar it is to today, and we'll get back to that when you're ready.
Yes.
But her election basically was not her election, the campaign was a pre-runner to economic catastrophe.
Wow.
But just remarkable women. I hope I have written it in a way that will grab the reader and entertain them, as well as them feel that they're in the room. That's what I like the most. I hope you could sense the candles burning or the shadows.
Yes. He's a phenomenal writer, and I can't wait for the next book. It's like, is it done yet? Is
It
it
will
done
be
yet?
out soon, and I'll get you an advance copy.
Oh, good. I
I
can't
plan
wait.
to release it, if I can, by the end of September.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So share with us a little bit about how you feel that the economy at that time related to the economy of today.
A lot of similarities. First of all, prices had been trumped up over the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, the expansion of the railroads, and stock prices were higher than their companies warranted. That sound familiar?
Yep.
I actually wrote a blog on Friday a week ago when the stock market hit an all-time high, and the name of my blog was "Get the F Out of the Market."
Yeah, I read that one.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And so what preceded that were a bunch of wrongdoings in the market, and that's part of the book because I go into a detailed description of how a scandal occurred, the gold scandal of 1869. And how it was manipulated by whom and how it worked. And after that, there was no change, no regulation. It was all laissez-faire back then. Anybody could do anything they wanted. And very similar to 2008. And while we had a Financial Reform Act, it didn't change anything. And today there are actually BTOs, which they're a financial instrument you can invest in.
Oh.
And that actually means, get this, bespoke tranche opportunities. So we know what it means, right?
No.
I don't have a clue.
I don't either.
I don't. I likened it to putting shaving cream on a balloon, carving out a smiley face, and selling them as airborne cream pies.
Cream pies.
I love that.
But the point is, these are the same things as the CDOs, the derivatives that got us into trouble before.
Right.
And now everybody's eating them up, and they're the same ratings. And part of the reason is, I believe, and there's a lot of evidence to prove to this, to point to this, is that the major investment firms have gone short. So you have fiduciary advisors on capital telling you to buy stocks long term, and they're shorting the market. How is that not a conflict of interest?
That's exactly right.
And it's exactly what happened 140 years ago.
Wow.
In 1872. So in 1873, we had the original Great Depression. And getting a little bit far from the book, but all this will be covered in book 2. Book 1 is about her rise to riches and becoming, the start of becoming famous. Book 2 is about her becoming famous, the run for president, and what happened to her, which is she became too powerful for a woman.
Oh.
And because she was challenging some people on the far right, the religious right, they castigated her, they demonized her, and she fell from grace hard. I mean, plummeted from grace.
Wow.
And by the end of book 2, she's actually destitute. But then something happens that turns things around.
Sweet.
So book 3 will be fun too.
And you know, I loved that Tennessee had such a connection to the spiritual world.
Yes.
That, I mean, people would go to her to hear what was going on in their lives and talk to.
And I had to make a choice. I have a connection to Vicki in the spiritual world. There's a passage in there, and you can probably figure out which one it is, where I sat down and she took over my hands. That's not me talking, because I didn't even imagine it. It's the scene where she addresses the great Negro statesman, and it's okay to say Negro when I'm talking about the 1870s, Frederick Douglass. And she challenges him, and I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but to me that's inspired writing.
Yes.
Because it was inspired by Vicki. I didn't think that stuff up. And that's when it gets really fun.
So she's coming through you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but yes, Tennessee was an amazing clairvoyant. Victoria, because she was more political and more social, was elected president of the American Association of Spiritualists and held that position for 3 elections.
See, I told you were going to love this.
Yes. So there's a lot of otherworldly things. And I decided to treat it in the stream of surreal, surrealism, but in the modern and as you see it. So it's a little bit more like Allende or Miguel, blanking on the name. Let's edit
That's
that.
okay.
And magic realism is the style of the book. And that treats visions and apparitions as taking place. So on a film treatment, which I'm hoping to get, you'd actually see the apparition and see the clairvoyance in the talking, and the person would be there. It wouldn't just be an empty room.
Right. I could so see this as a screenplay or as in a film. It would be just
Thank you.
Wow.
so riveting is the word that I want. Riveting. Because seriously, when I said I couldn't put it down, I really meant that. I mean, it's the way that Neal describes things and takes you through the history, and you can really feel what the women were thinking.
So in 1873, just to get back to the financial point, because I want to address your question, we actually had a Great Depression that nobody knows about. It was called the Great Depression in economics for over 50 years. It took the Great Depression of 1929 to replace it. And I don't know what they're going to rename 1929 after the next couple of years.
Wow. Wow.
Oh,
Exactly.
it would be the Great Depression 3,
The greatest.
or the Great S.
The greatest, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, Neal, I wish we had hours to talk to you, and I'd love to have you back on the set again to
Love
talk
to.
more about this.
Well, I'd love to talk about the charities.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking of. And so why don't you just briefly tell us about the charity, and then we'll wrap it up.
It's a paradigm to create monetary liquidity worldwide. Funding without $1 spent by the government, funding without $1 donated as a contribution. It's a question of leveraging assets, particularly cash that's deposited in a CD, and creating the protections so that that money gets paid back, so it can be used again and again and again.
So it's a win, win, and another win.
The goal is 100 billion in 3 years and $1 trillion in 6.
Wow. Awesome.
All to social well-being.
Talk about a big
Nice.
thinker, right?
Yes, that's beautiful.
Well,
Really
Neal,
beautiful.
thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And, I just want to tell everybody, be sure that you read the book Outrageous. You will love every minute of it. Thanks, Neal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know, Lori, what was your biggest aha during the class?
Figuring out how to say what I do in 4 to 5 words. This has been so exciting because now when I network and someone asks me what I do, I can say it so succinctly and very excited to the point that women say, I want to work.
Oh, wow. Talk about change. I'm a change agent here, and I tell you, I was resistant, and I did move forward, and I did risk only because Shirlene was so gentle and supportive for that process.
I am so excited to be able to reach so many women now, whereas before it was one-on-one, and now I can reach the masses.
The masses. Massive visibility for massive income, right?
Yes.
Rich Gaines is a speaker, author, and estate and tax planning attorney with over 30 years of experience. He is dynamic, energizing, and filled with passion. Rich makes a difference in people's lives by getting them over the hurdles to wealth, not only in money, but in values, beliefs, and traditions. Having worked with thousands of businesses and families developing wealth plans, he has seen how businesses and families can be ripped apart. This led Rich to develop the Treasure of Wealth system, which features 7 simple steps to quickly increase cash flow, maximize time, and avoid costly mistakes. Rich is a 3-time author and has been featured on KFMB 760 AM radio and ESPN radio. He is a leader in his community for legal, charitable, and business organizations and was an educator at the University of Phoenix. Rich is happily married with children and is an avid tennis player and skier and has lived in San Diego for over 25 years.
We are so lucky to have Rich Gaines here for a repeat performance because he's so smart when it comes to the tax advantages that are available to all businesses. So we're delighted to have you here to share about that and your 777 Wealth Program. So
Well, thank you for having me again, and I think I'm the lucky one. You guys are fantastic. This is a great show. I love being here. It's absolutely
you.
wonderful.
Thank
and
you.
To be able to share the information and to be able to make a difference in people's lives. So I think last time we talked about my vision, which is to expand the way people think and talk about wealth. And it's not only in money, but in values, beliefs, and traditions. And I'm really passionate about that. I love to teach. This is what I teach. I have a new program, as you just mentioned. It's called the 777 Wealth Growth System for business owners. And what that means is 7 keys in 7 weeks to lead to 7 figures. Because when you go through the process, and really wealth is just about a sequence, and when you go through that sequence, you can have 7 figures, and that's what's really exciting for me.
God, that is exciting, because knowing that you could get to 7 figures with just, you made it sound so simple, a sequence. So could you expand on that, please?
Absolutely. So again, 7 keys. So we start with, so I want to talk about what really is on business owners' minds.
That's what I want to know.
And I think what really concerns business owners is 3 things. First is uncertainty. What happens when we're uncertain? We get into our comfort zone, we don't take action, we're afraid of that future, and so we get comfortable in doing the things that we're used to, and we don't take those risks and expand beyond our boundaries.
Or spend the money. They don't want to spend the money because they don't know if there's going to be an outcome.
They're afraid, they don't have the trust, they don't have belief. When I released the idea that I was always afraid of where the next dollar was going to come from, and I realized I've always been taken care of in my life. You know,
lucky you.
I don't know what, yeah, but we don't know where it comes from.
That's right.
And when we release that, I mean, I've had people come in from places I never expected. And you look up and you just go, where did that come from? I have no idea. And so when you realize that you have been taken care of, the people you really are taken care of in your life, and when you can release that anxiety, all of a sudden it opens up a whole new world. So this idea of certainty can create that.
Yes.
And then lack of structure is really big. A lot of business owners don't understand that simply by tweaking the structure of what they do, we can protect what they have, we can change the tax consequences of what they have, we can keep more money in their pocket, we can keep more money for their family. There's a massive amount of benefits. And last is the security piece. You know, how many of us are insecure? We're insecure about who we are and what happened to us and all the stories of our past and, you know, what do we do in the future? And when we get over people that, over that insecurity, again, the door is open. So certainty, structure, and security. So how does that relate to the system that I've created? Well, we talked last time about the key of planning. So I want to ask you a question, which is, do you think that having more planning in place would give you more certainty?
Of course. Yes. That's your foundation, right?
That's your foundation.
Yes.
And so when we move from that certainty to structure, well, what's our structure? Our structure is foundations. And foundations, so think of your house. If you're building a house or doing a remodel or anything with it, what do you do first? You design it, you plan for it.
Yes.
And then what happens? You lay the foundations and you start building the structure, right? And so we have a foundations, which is the 9 areas of business that we focus on. And after foundations, well, now we want to protect what we have. So we get all the insurance and we make sure that we get our, whatever, the blinds and things that make sure that the house is protected. And after that, we get into really the security pieces. And the security pieces are where we talk about our character. And I've got all kinds of little cartoon ideas and things about character. You know, we talk about the crybaby who wants it now, the immediate gratification, the intellectual who is, you know, so smart and talking about what they do that they confuse everybody. So we have to have, you know, I call it the KISSAR principle. Keep it simple, stupid, and relevant, you know?
And relevant.
And relevant. You know, if it means something to you, are you going to be engaged? Are you going to be interested?
Yeah.
See, I can keep it simple, but you may not care. So I want to make it relevant to you. So little characters like that. We talk about the clogs in our emotion and the barriers that hold us back. So some of the things that get in our way, like root clogs. The root clogs are that stuff that Freud talked about. It's the unconscious, the ego, the stuff that's there. We talk about our upbringing. You know, how were we raised? Were we raised to be a rock star where we spend money? Were we raised to be a caregiver where we save money? Were we raised to be a jester where the money goes into the drawer and the bills are there and we don't care about it and we don't follow it? It's somewhere around
I know
here.
where it's filed.
We know where it's filed. It's over in that file. And so all of these ideas are the areas that when we focus on, we can create better opportunity for people as we go through this process. And it is, and so I have a training course. I have a workbook that I have video modules that I actually teach the information on these videos. And so business owners can have a step-by-step guide that they can go through in each one of these keys.
That's
and as
awesome.
they get through that, they've got really, honestly, they have everything they need. Now, is it easy? Not necessarily, but it certainly can be done, and it's simple to do. So there's exercises, questions, and it's great. And
That's awesome, and that's all online.
that is all online.
So it's automated, so you're off the hook for actually doing it. However, I bet I'm just guessing that you have some live trainings, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I thought so.
So as part of our program, what we do is we offer a 30-minute strategy session, and that's with me personally to get an idea of what's going on with the book. We have, I do a 3-hour virtual training, and then I have live events. We have credits towards that, and I also have something that's very, very, very special, which is a monthly treasure call. So every month, people who are engaged in the program can call up. If they're having a challenge, what's that challenge? They can ask any question on money, law, tax, or business. Where else do you get a 30-year tax attorney for $497 to sign up for one program? And the answer is nowhere.
Just in case you were wondering.
In case you were wondering.
Not happening.
Not happening. And so that's what's exciting. And so I can bridge that for the business owner. And of course, the business owner, it becomes a question of family. It becomes a question of, what do they want for themselves? What do they want for their future? What do they want for their family? How do we build wealth inside the family? And how do we make a difference in the world? How do we make an impact in people's lives that's different than just selling products and services?
Absolutely.
I have an easy question for you. Do you also teach them about tax in your program?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And tax is a huge part of it. It's funny you asked me that question. When I first was in practice, and I was really narrow blinders in tax, and I loved tax, and that's what I did, and that's what I learned, and that's the environment that I was trained in. And I had a partner in a law firm, and he said, you really should learn a lot broader area than just the tax law. And the reason I bring up that story is because tax impacts everything.
Yeah.
Everything you do, no matter what
Absolutely.
it is, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business life, whether it's in dealing with your home, anything that happens, there's always a tax implication. And so...
Dang it, they're always over your shoulder going, let me see.
The government is always over your shoulder, and we're in your corner making sure that we protect you from that government. And really, to your question, there are huge amounts of opportunities to use the tax laws in your favor. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's about interpretation. It's about question. One of the things that I looked at when I was creating the structure around the certainty and the insecurity and all of that was how can I use the tax laws to people's benefits and what does it really mean for their business? So are you having a hobby? Is it a hobby? Is that really what you're doing in life? Are you making a living, which is trading the dollars for the work hours, right? Or are you truly running a business, where a business is working for you, where you're utilizing the talents of people, you're leveraging the opportunities that are there so that, you're not necessarily bound to the desk doing the work.
And I want to say, before I had my C Corporation, I had my nationwide company, and I went over the million mark, and suddenly I owed $100,000 to the IRS because I didn't have a C Corp.
Yep.
And I had to drive around on the poor side of town so I could appreciate what I had before I wrote the check. So I talk to people all the time that have businesses and they have no concept of the fact that they are going to pay taxes and it's going to be painful.
Yes,
and
it is.
The reason I asked you that question is because that would be such an awesome class just for businesses that are hobbies trying to move into businesses because they so desperately need it. And I could have used it at that time.
It's a huge part of what we do, and that goes to the whole question of structure. What is your structure? How are you running the business? What are you doing in ways that we can classify income in a certain way that changes the way it's taxed?
Nice.
How can we shelter some of that income? How can we use the benefits of the corporation?
Yes.
Because the different structures have different tax consequences associated with them. What's ironic is when you have a corporation and an individual, and those tax brackets are large, there's a big gap there. The challenge, it makes it easier to do tax planning. Because we're saying, well, wait a minute, if your individual bracket is way up here and your corporate bracket is down here, then we want you in a corporation so you don't have to pay as much tax. But as the brackets get compressed, all of a sudden it's like, well, do I want this? Do I want that? What's the difference? And then it goes into protection and other things as well, using a variety of structures. Especially for businesses that have different products. So we want to take a product in one company, protect that product in one company, so that if something happens adversely in that one product range, then the rest of the products are protected.
Exactly. Great point. Really good point. Well, Rich, thank you so much for being with us. Do you have a final thought you want to throw out at us?
I would like to mention the book, of course, which is The Magic of Money. And I wrote this book. It's 21 Action Strategies to Make Money Work for You. The thought that I love is about just paying yourself first. The only way to build wealth is to make sure that some of that money goes into your pocket. People can contact me at www.treasureofwealth.com. And that's our website. And so it's a great way to look at what we have to offer people and the events and all the different areas we can help.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us again.
Well, I appreciate your having me.
I'd love to have you back again at tax time so that you can give the businesses some tips.
We'll do some.
Give the businesses some business.
We'll give some. We'll give them the 3 strong tips of how to save money from taxes.
Exactly. You got it.
During tax time.
Thank you so much.
Great. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.